Welcome to I on the Illini Live. This is Mike Cagley with Brad Sturdy, Kedrick Prince. Guys, yet another Illini football recruit. It looks like Illinois is mopping up in a fashion we haven't seen since Ron Zook. This is a real upgrade of talent. It's fun to see. Ked, you got recruits calling you. Talk to us a little bit about maybe today's commitment and then what you're noticing.
Today, and I have to be honest, I don't want to say it was a surprise, Mike and Brad, but it was when they received a tight end commitment today from a kid named Will Vala, a 6'4", 220-pound prospect out of Downers Grove North High School in Illinois. He's a 17th commitment in the 2026 class, depending upon what recruiting site you look at. But for the most part, most of them have Illinois in the top 10. This kid may put him in the top 7 or 8, depends. But what's unique about this recruitment and for this pickup that I've learned is that everybody knows Illinois is recruiting 2 other high-profile tight ends, and J.C. Anderson and Max Suter. Those are 2 of the top 5 players in the state of Illinois and 2 of the top 75 players in the country. And for them to get a commitment today from Will today, what I'm understanding from what's being told to me is that they're really going to use the tight end. Barry London Jr. is going to use the tight end more. It's a weapon that Iowa uses a lot. Does Bielema used it a lot when he was at Wisconsin. So they're selling these kids on this. And think about it. There's some talented tight ends, if they could get them all. So it's a big commitment, and one that I don't want to say I was surprised about, but I was, because everybody knows that there's a really good chance that they're going to land one of the other 2 guys. And then if you pull off a 3-star prospect like this out of the state of Illinois and you're able to keep him home, is huge.
Yeah, I think it's really good. This staff is doing a fantastic job recruiting. I just don't think there's any other way to say it. I expect there to be more commitments coming out of the weekend, kids canceling upcoming visits because they're locked in, kids who visited who were committed. And in football, commitments are always just verbal commitments, right? There's the kids, it's like fluid, a verbal.
Brad. A guy told
me it's very fluid. I'm gonna commit, but then hey, I'm gonna take 6 more visits while I'm committed. Imagine if it's a good thing my wife didn't try out other people. So who knows, she may not have been committed. But so I think they've done a great job with keeping those guys committed too and getting locked in. So really impressive. Ked mentioned another tight end. I think that they also are going to lose quite a few tight ends before those guys are ready to go. So they're going to need guys who are ready to come in and play. I think a kid, this might be a kid who's maybe not ready to play the first year, but maybe J.C. Anderson or Max Suter is. And so you get to stagger that a little bit. I think they're always trying to figure it out. And it's so hard to project down the road. And who knows? Maybe one of them blows up and becomes a defensive end too. You just don't know how they're going to be used down the road, or like an outside linebacker or whatever you want to call it, outside linebacker, whatever. But so there's different ways that these guys can be used, and so it's really impressive what they've done. And they're really going to have a good season, which is definitely not going to hurt their chances either in the future.
I'll tell you what, just so you guys know, one thing about recruiting that is a little different. Every coach has their own niche and things that they do. From what I was told by recruits, now I never confirmed this with any staff members, but what Brett made me think about this when he mentioned kids can go and look for another prom date or homecoming date. Brett Bielema, one of the things he really emphasizes, if he recruits a kid and you commit, that means you commit. That means you don't go snooping around and you don't go anywhere else. Kids have told me that, recruits told me that if he's going to give you his commitment, he's expecting the same thing. I like that, because that's one thing about football recruiting I'm not a fan of. Guys jump around. Now, it's happened in Illinois a few times. We all know that, but very rarely does it happen. Once these guys are in, because it becomes a big thing. It becomes a big thing to him because he makes a big deal out of it on social media. Illinois has a really big fan base and a big media base, so we all go all out promoting these kids. So once you commit to him and to the University of Illinois and his staff, they expect you to stay.
Yeah, and is there something that Illinois does, Ked? You talk to these recruits all the time. They seem to have some sort of ability to create this team attitude that not only is a selling point, but it seems like when you talk to the actual players, seems like a real thing. What are you hearing?
I've said this so many times in this podcast, and I really wish that the listeners out there listening to this podcast and you too, when I talk to these recruits with football, with Brett Bielema, I can't say this about any other basketball coach that's been there and any other football coach. If Brett Bielema told them that they could walk on water, I think these kids believe it. They really believe what he's telling them. The thing, I just keep going back to some of these recruits telling me that when most of the head coaches don't recruit them number one, okay? It's always an assistant. But when I hear these recruits tell me that Brett Bielema came in to see them wearing a T-shirt, flip-flops, Croc shoes, drinking water out of a styrofoam cup, he's like them. He's not trying to big league anybody. And we know, how much money he makes. He is a down-to-earth person. And then when these parents see this, and it's not fake, the kids have always told me this guy is genuine, and his NFL background is proving it. He's putting guys in the NFL. Early in his career, when he first got there, I heard a lot about player development. That was a big thing with Brett Bielema. That was his sell. Now you can sit on the field. And I don't want to say it's the most important thing, because this is different, because we're excited about Illinois football, is that we don't have enough time in this show to look at all the guys that they're going up against and beating. We can talk about 2 stars, 3 stars, and 4 stars. The Fighting Illini are literally beating Michigan, teams like Michigan, Oregon, USC, Tennessee, Auburn. That didn't happen, guys. Occasionally you were going to get one kid, but this roster, I mean, think about it. They're a top 10 team in the country, recruiting ahead of teams like Oregon and Michigan.
It's really insane when you think about it, because that used to be, hey, we're beating MAC schools, but we're going to get an under the radar guy, so it's going to be okay. And now it's different, and so I think that's really impressive. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it really, like I said, we haven't seen that since Ron Zook, but seemed like he was selling more hope, and Brett Bielema is selling more on field accomplishment. Now, maybe I'm just biased, recency bias, but I always felt like Zook was a great recruiter. I didn't always know that his X's and O's were going to take you over the top, so to speak. And I do think we see a lot of that from Brett Bielema, where they're playing the angles, or he's getting inside the head of an opposing coach just by doing a little.
Zook wasn't good at spelling X's and O's, so that gave him trouble. Good recruiter, though.
No, yeah.
And I often thought if you had some of Illinois' past X's and O's guys with Ron Zook being the recruiting coordinator, wouldn't that have been fun?
Could do okay.
Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. Another guy I want to mention, Mike, I shouldn't mention the fact that they're recruiting the state. He told us in his press conference, Bielema did, that he was not going to lock down the state. But I like the fact that you're going to come into Illinois, and now there's serious interest. Now, some people can say, you're not getting the number 1 or 2 players. That happens all over the country. You think the number 1 player in the state of Iowa always goes to Iowa? That doesn't happen. Those days are done. But to know that they're going to go in and get guys who are being offered other schools like Casey Tolman, the kid from Only, or Jacob Alexander, or Davon Grant, the wide receiver out of DeKalb, you lost kids like that. I had an opportunity to talk to Cam Thomas, the linebacker out of Ohio, who's a legitimate 4-star recruit who had over 50 offers. And his thing is, he mentioned to me, Illinois has everything that I need. And why go somewhere else to sit on the bench and be told I'm going to play? At Illinois, if we're good enough to play as freshmen or sophomores or redshirt, they're going to play us. And coaches have told us that. We've seen players on the field. Matthew Bailey was one of those kids, a 2-star recruit coming out of high school, and he's one of the best corners in the country. So the way I look at it, they have sold what they're about, and the momentum is hot. We've talked before about Bruce Weber when he was there for basketball. He didn't do that. When Illinois was in the Final Four, he didn't capitalize. Bielema was capitalizing on that 10-win season last year.
Yeah, and let's go into that, because I think a lot of people really, again, and people know we're the Illini guys. We're pretty positive. We try to be honest, though. And I think this Illinois team could be a better team than last year and maybe not win 10 games. What scares me is they've got a couple really tough games on the road early with that Duke game, and Duke has replaced the quarterback from Texas who left. And so they've got a QB. And then I think Signetti is just Bielema is a pretty smart cat. And I think he's probably got the Illinois game scheduled as a game that Indiana has to win if they don't want to hear that they're a fraud. And so those two games are on the road. Now, obviously, Illinois plays Western Illinois and Western Michigan. So that's a good one. And then we go into USC. Real quick, give us a thought on the schedule that Illinois is facing this year.
It's difficult. And now in the way these conferences are set up, they're going to be difficult every year. But when you got the defending national champion, you got USC, who is a perennial. I know they've had a couple of down years, but they had a big time program. You're traveling to the West Coast. You've got so many different obstacles, even an Indiana team that was in the playoff last year. You start going down the line. Remember, they won a lot of close games last year to get to that 10-win mark. And so they had to survive some stuff. They could be a better football team, and they are a better football team this year, and still go 8-4 in the regular season. It doesn't mean they're not. But I think this is the thing. That's what you want to be. You always may be in that team that's going to be in a bowl game. You have but if things click right, I'm not going to lie. This team could go 10-2 as well. So they could go 11-1, maybe. Who knows?
I
things
agree.
Click. And you never know who's going to get hurt on the other teams. There's so many different variables. If your downside, if you go 8-4 and you feel like that's a bad year, think about how the expectations have changed for this football team. We had a rough year at 8-4. I'm ready to build a statue at 8-4.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. So.
Especially going after winning 10 games. We've all been optimistic about this team and what the potential could be. And last year, it's in the past. And a lot of coaches will tell you that you shouldn't talk about it. But I will say, you go back to the Purdue game, the ball bounced their way. Look at the Rutgers game. What an ending. All those games could have went the other way. I think the big thing with this group, I think the talent is there. They are definitely more talented. They're not going to sneak up on anybody. They have to stay healthy to me. You have to stay healthy. As good as a guy is like Caden Fagan, we lost him to injury last year. And that's football. You're going to lose somebody. But what you can't afford to do is the first game of the season, like Matthew Bailey came out 2 years in a row, whatever, and the first play of the game, he's out for the season. Those are daggers. Now, the team is built differently because there's more depth, but if you're going to have those injuries, they can't be 4 and 5 game injuries, and they can't be two multiple stars, I guess, or guys that are starters. But to me, I do think the schedule's tough. I've been saying that since it was released. Mike, you mentioned Indiana. I think that's tough. And I'll tell you what, USC had a down year, but they're one of the top recruiting classes in the country again. They're doing a good job. We don't know what to get from Purdue. I know there's no talent there, but it's a new team. Ohio State, and you have to go to Washington and Wisconsin. Fickle's going to be fighting to save his job because, you know what, one of their own, which is Brett Bielema, has the potential to come in and beat him again and then also take recruits. But stay healthy. If they can stay healthy and not get injured and the ball bounces their way again, I'd like to see 10 wins, but fans really shouldn't get mad with 8 wins because that means you've had a successful season and you're going to be going to a really good bowl game.
Yep. Hey, we got a little bit of a surprise today. We got Kenyon Alston, who is a 3A All-State team in Florida, 6'2", 195-pound commit to the Fighting Illini. He's coming on board today to talk a little bit with us about why he chose the Illini and some of the decision-making process. So, hey, great to have you on the show.
What's up?
You came in and had your visit this weekend. Tell us a little bit about what you enjoyed and what made you think the Fighting Illini was where you wanted to play your college football.
I feel like it was just the overall brotherhood, meeting with the players, hanging out with most of the commits, because we had, I want to say, like 16 recruits there, and 11 of them were committed. So I feel like just the bond we shared, going out, paintball, pool, watching the Sean O'Malley fight all together, was just a great brotherhood.
Ken, let me ask you, if you don't mind, real quick. One of the things that we talked about before you got on the air was the way the coaching staff sell their love, their commitment to the players, why it's different in Illinois. What's different about Illinois compared to other schools? Because every school is going to tell you we're family, we're this, we're that. But Illinois is different. When you talk to all these recruits, they all tell me the same thing. Illinois is different. What vibe did you get, or what is really different about them compared to some of the other powerhouse schools?
Obviously, Coach Brett being the whole game changer. I want to say the consistency with Coach Stepp recruiting me since last year, June 15th, because that's when I was able to talk to coaches. Just him being consistent almost every couple of days, checking up on me, getting me up there for visits and all that. It was just great.
You obviously had a host of tremendous offers from a lot of schools around the country, and also some schools in the South. What was it nice to come up here and see that it's not all snow and it's not all winter all the time? You can actually have some nice weather too.
Yeah, I'm actually from up north. I'm from Michigan. I was born there, so I already basically got the gist of what the weather go be. But it was nice in Champaign this week. I feel good.
There's some sort of thing about guys being underrated in Florida, and then they come up to Illinois and prove that they're stars. So describe your game a little bit for Illini fans who are interested in what you're going to bring to the table.
I just feel like I'm real dominant, deep threat, catch a slant, take it to the crib. I'm you can move me all around. I can go to the slot. First play on my film, I had a slot, seam, touchdown 60 yards. I can pretty much do everything on the field. Just love going on the field and asserting my dominance.
What about your recruiting class? There's a lot of guys like yourself, extremely talented. When they bring recruits in, other recruits, are you one of those guys who recruit other players and say, hey, come join this brotherhood, this is going to be a part of something special? Do you stay out of it, or are you one of those guys to try to help sell the program and continue to get better recruits?
Definitely try to get other recruits. Me and Mike Clayton, the quarterback commit, trying to get Owen to commit here and trying to get another O lineman. But we definitely try to sell the program, definitely.
When you guys do that, if I have a follow-up question really quick, do you get a lot of reservation thinking maybe this isn't for me, or do you get any negative feedback when you guys try to do that?
Nah, not really. It's either the player just go tell it, be straight up with us, because obviously they're not going to be straight up with the coaches. But when it comes to us having to do it, they'll be straight up with us. They'll give us the real.
So when you were describing yourself, you said you were good in the slot and things but so on the outside, you've got the size too to be an outside receiver too, and make those difficult contested catches on the outside. When you kind of look at how you fit, do you see yourself on the outside or in the slot? And how does getting to know your future quarterback, help you in this process too?
Oh, me and Mike have known each other for 2 years, 3 years from now. Yeah, and then I feel like obviously I'm more dominant on the outside, taking people deep, any route, contested catches, all that. But getting to know Mike even more is way more important, so we can go in freshman year and just dominate.
And when you look at what out of the coaches, wide receiver coach, offensive coordinator, how much did that factor into your decision when because you had 30 offers or more than that? So what did you do to narrow that down to the Fighting Illini?
Yeah, it was a real hard decision, but I feel like Coach Stepp was just the piece, because obviously he's good at coaching receivers, but just outside of coaching receivers, he's a family. He's a real big family guy. So I feel like he can really take care of me while I'm in Champaign, on and off the field, make me a better man.
Without naming any names, if this happened to you, we talked a little bit before you got on air to join us. What do you do when other schools try to recruit you away from your commitment from Illinois? How hard is that, and what are they saying to you? Again, don't name any schools, but if they're saying, hey, don't go to Illinois, why go here? You can come here and do this. What is that process like, and how hard is it to stay committed?
I feel like it's pretty easy to stay committed. I've had schools just diss Illinois for just dumb stuff.
Example, just if you don't mind, just giving us a couple examples.
They'll just talk about how they're a better throw-on program, talk about the receivers in the past, and talk about the stats, throwing yards, receptions, passing yard, all that stuff, receiving yards.
When you see a guy like a Pat Bryant who gets played in this same system and he gets drafted, does that kind of tell you, hey, I can do the same type of thing? Because you've got a similar build. You're a similar type player in the sense that you can get deep. You can make those contested catches. Does that help that sell?
For sure. Step, when I was there this weekend, he just ran down my film and then ran down Pat's film. Said it's just exactly the same. Saying I even look a little better than Pat when he was going into his freshman year. So that definitely tells me a lot.
Yeah, that's definitely got to be a positive. And obviously, the coverage from the Illini guys has to go in the positive for going to Illinois. Because this is the type of coverage you get. So when you look at it and you take a look at all the different things, what did you think of Illinois' facilities? Because Illinois has invested a lot of dollars in that. And I'll tell you what, it's night and day versus what we saw in past decades. What did the facilities coupled with the rest of those things mean to you?
The facilities are just great. I feel like the new technology in the weight room, they had this massage thing in the weight room. It was crazy. It was like, yeah, the locker room was amazing. Meeting rooms. The meeting room actually, like, if you're driving past the practice fields, you can see the whole meeting room. Like, it's a big window. Like, it depends if the blinds are shut or not, but you can see the whole thing. Beautiful.
One of the things, because I'm big into recruiting, the coaches talk about the family part that I mentioned. Other than football, do they ever talk to you about life, going to school, being an athlete, going to the pros? If you don't make it to the pros, why academics are important, and just about life situations, not always about football. Do you get the information from the Illinois coaching staff?
Not much, but obviously they talk about academics and all that. It's a great degree in Illinois, and yeah.
Perfect. I tell you what, Kenyon, thanks so much for coming on. And we have Illini fans who really are so excited about you coming this way and obviously locking down the recruitment process, and people want to get a chance to know you. And so we appreciate you taking some time out of your evening to talk to us.
Yes, sir. Got y'all.
All righty. Go Illini.
All right.
Hope to have you. We'll have you back on the show later this year. How about that?
I got you.
Thanks.
Sure.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
boys.
All right.
That was Kenyon Alston. I'll tell you what, it's cool when you get to listen to a kid from Florida talk about the benefits of playing at Illinois. Remember how crazy it was when Mike White used to bring in guys from California, and they were like amazed that the earth still was normal in Illinois. So I think it's awesome that Brett Bielema's got this Florida connection that's just become amazing.
Yeah, it's good. This is I think you said it best. These guys from Florida come in as a 3-star kid, and then next thing you know, they're in 2 years they're playing like a high 4-star kid. You're like, wait, why are they so good? Because they're just different. It's just a different level of talent, and fantastic to get him on here and get some insight. I think it's cool to hear what happens on the visits, things that they enjoy, and how they use Pat Bryant as a great selling point. And you look at this kid on film, and you look at this kid running, and you just look at his build and stuff. It's like this kid could be Pat Bryant. I mean, at that level of kind of impact, and he might make an impact a little bit sooner. I think he might be a little bit farther along early on the route. Wow, really impressive. And you can see how Illinois is using that in their cell, because they put guys, I'm sure they have a cornerback and they've got Devin Witherspoon out there. If they've got a safety, they've got
the highest paid safety in the history.
Well, yeah, you could talk. Yeah, I could go all those guys. There's so many defensive backs. They're DBU right now.
Yeah.
So.
Ked,
to me, I like the fact that about him staying committed, number one. But in 2025, I thought the negative recruiting was done. I mean, if you have a program, you have something to sell, I can tell you, I know firsthand, the Illinois football, basketball coaches, women's, they don't do that. I've talked to enough recruits. If they can't sell what they have and convince you to come, they don't badmouth other programs. It's disappointing to me to hear. That happened a lot in the 80s and 90s, but to do whatever you need to do to get a recruit, but that's disappointing to me. But the numbers and things that they can lie and say that Illinois can't do this and they can't do that. You guys both just mentioned players that they put in the NFL, and Pat Bryant was a guy that came out of nowhere and he had a tremendous year. So throwing a statistic up there like that. Now, the history of the program, yeah, there's been some great ones and then there's been some down years, but this isn't the same program. It's not the same staff.
Yeah, and I do think, I hate to say it as a salesperson, but there's a time and a place to sell negatively, and the bottom line goes from the beginning of mankind. Some bunch of dudes come over the hill carrying spears. You got to pay attention to danger versus stop and smell the roses. You can do that anytime. So the negative stuff tends to get your attention a little quicker than the positive. But I thought it was great the way Ken said it was easy to keep my commitment. I think that's the type of guy that Brett Bielema is looking for. But we talk about heart and all that stuff, but I want a guy who's talented. And if his films look better than, or as good or better than Pat Bryant at the same time, then I'm all ears about how he wants to be an Illini and stay an Illini.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. It's pretty good. That's a good thing.
And let's have the battles keeping them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something Ked probably educates people on more than what you imagine, because basketball recruiting is fierce, but football recruiting it's just shots. Basketball is like boxing, and then football recruiting is like just hit below the belt and see what happens. Guys are trying to flip people all the time. You really got to do a sell job to get somebody and keep them. It's definitely not easy in the world of hard enough in basketball, let alone football. We were talking about the schedule. I'm thinking I'd love the Illini to win between 8 and 10 games. I think it would be so incredibly cool to see the Illini go double digit. But this schedule, as we talked about, when you play Duke, you play Indiana on the road, then you're at home against USC. Say what you want about Purdue, they always play Illinois. Then you have, I don't know, some team, Ohio State. I think they're decent. Then you're traveling. Then you travel out to Washington. You have Rutgers and Maryland. You're at Wisconsin, who's going to be playing a meat grinder schedule. And no offense, but I think they're going to fight for every win because it's such a hard schedule. They may need, if they win 4 games instead of 3, that's a great thing, or whatever. And then Northwestern's always a dogfight. So I would love to see a double-digit win total from the Illini, but I don't think it's going to be an easy accomplishment.
Oh, no. It's going to be tough. But here's the great part is that they can do it.
And they are that good.
Yeah.
They are good enough to have an opportunity to do that. I think the biggest thing is just getting that done. And if they can win, but again, I'm looking, if they get 8 or 9 wins, I look at that as a great year. I know some people might not, but I look at that as a great year. But that's just
it will be compared to what we're used to seeing, the 56-0, 65-0. I'm sorry, I don't forget those days. Those were just awful. And they're on national TV, and then the announcers are starting to talk about Christmas and what they're doing for New Year's and golf tournaments because the game was over by halftime.
Yeah, when they start talking about that boxing chess in Russia, you know that the Illinois game was gotten bad. But with Brett Bielema around, those days are few and far between. So I got to say, man, this guy's worth his weight in gold, and he's turned it around. The other thing I do think is also important is, of course, Illinois announcing some key positions. And I thought that filling up, and I want to make sure I get all the names correct, but when they talked about filling the chancellor position, that's exactly what you need with Charles Lee Isbell Jr. out of University of Wisconsin-Madison. And look, what I think about Michigan and Wisconsin is they're 2 academic institutions that have used their sports to build their academic reputation and keep elevating the kids who are attempting to get in. I think this, at least on the surface, don't claim to know the gentleman, but on the surface, this looks like a really good hire compared to some of the guys in the past who, when they drove past Memorial Stadium, didn't know what a football stadium was. So I think this is a big deal. And I thought it was really interesting how quickly Josh Whitman was to get out there, and Brett Bielema, et cetera. I thought that was really cool that the coaches were out there that quickly to support him.
Yeah. Oh, no question. I think it's great. I think you summed it up well. So I have a question for you. Do you think that, so when you look at this, what sells for Brett Bielema? What is the sell? What you mentioned Ked mentioned earlier, the flip flops. It's the connection with these kids. Why is he? Because I think I've had Brett on 30 for 30. You've had podcasts, whatever. He's just a good dude. It just seems like he'd be a great guy to have a beer with and grill a steak and hang out with, right? So what makes him connect with all these different kids? And he's got kids from all over, different types, different backgrounds. What makes him so good at that?
He doesn't, big time kids. I'm telling you, kids will say to me, or recruits will say to me, I don't get to talk to the head coach, or I don't get to talk to the defensive coordinator. There's all these recruiting, quote unquote, assistants that's doing the work. Brett will get on an airplane or get in his vehicle and drive to see the kids himself. He will stand on the sideline. Not that other coaches don't do it. Don't get me wrong. But he doesn't lie. These kids aren't stupid. Kenyon just said the players will tell the coaches what they want to hear. Brett doesn't lie. I don't want to throw names out there because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But Brett's coaching staff, they'll tell you the same thing. They're loyal as hell because he's loyal to them. And if you can, we've all been a part of people trying to sell you stuff, people trying to tell you what's best for you and what's not. We're all of us and people listening smart enough to understand if somebody's trying to pull a fast one on you. He doesn't do that. And even the kids that leave, they're not mad when they leave. I remember Josh Whitman talked about at our annual media day that they're proud because Illinois was one of the top 2 schools in the country that retained most of their kids who didn't leave in the transfer portal. There's a reason for that. There's a guy, I'm going to throw a name out there because I think this guy is important to the University of Illinois moving forward. We've not talked about him in any of the podcasts. And this, to answer your question, Brad, Malik Elzy. Malik Elzy, to me, that's a position that I'm concerned about. But Malik Elzy could have went anywhere. This kid came out of high school. When he came out of high school from Simeon, he thought in his mind he was going to be on the field right away. I thought for sure this kid will leave, and he's still there. He's still there because now it's his time to shine. They've made him better. He looks good. His body looks totally different. Whatever it is that they're telling these kids, and I guess in the world we live in right now, it's easy to lie to people. Brett is telling the truth, and kids believe it, and he's showing it to them. And the NFL, people, if you think about NFL numbers, Brad and Mike, you don't think about Illinois. But you look at Brett's resume, and he's coached in the NFL. He hires good staff. It's hard to say no. The facilities are nice. Our fan base, I shouldn't have said that. The Illinois fan base is as good as anybody in the country. It just is. You look at social media, it's tremendous. And when a kid commits, those recruits feel the love.
I think the other one is a little bit harder to equate, but I think some of it comes down to the fact that Brett just works harder. When you're a coach and you're making, the money that a successful Big Ten football or basketball coach makes, it's easy to say somebody else's job or I've got to go do something, so I'm going to go home now. But I think he spends the time actually talking with the kids where they feel like I'm not trying to say he's a father figure, but he does guide and take time and care about these kids as individuals. And I think the era of the coach who sits up in the office by himself and lets his assistants do the work and is the puppet master, I think those days are gone because these kids, they can get paid anywhere and they can go anywhere. The drop of a hat, they'll be eligible at their next school. I think there has to be a personal relationship. I think Brett Bielema, I used to always tell my sales reps, if you put money in the bank so that when things are going well, so that you can make a withdrawal when things are going rough, I think he does that. He takes that time so that you look at Brad, you've been coaching for 30 years. You've won a bunch of titles at every level. Those kids know you care about them because you took the time. And then when you lean on them to make them perform harder, they know you really care, versus a guy who never said 3 words to him and then all of a sudden is screaming at him that they have to play better. I think that coaches don't get appreciated enough for that. I think the guys on TV, they're looking for the fun. So when Brad Underwood or Brett Bielema, they yell at a referee, that's good TV. But I don't think they talk about all the time that Brett Bielema spends maybe in his office or somewhere sitting down talking to an individual player or a group of players and what that means to them later on. Because we can all think of coaches that did that with us when we were kids.
Oh,
I want to bring
sure.
up a kid's name. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bradley.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think I disappeared.
Brad just got so mad he turned his camera off.
Turn my camera off. I banned.
There was, yeah. Look at Mike. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, Brad. I didn't want to make you that mad.
Way to go, Ked. You ruined the whole podcast.
You got a picture of me. I don't know how. What? Oh my gosh.
Okay, Ked, we'll go ahead with the answer while Brad's doing his technical difficulties. You'll get this at IlliniGuys, folks.
There was one recruit I remember talking to specifically. You guys are talking about Brett. He's on campus right now. He's a junior college kid. His name is Ishmael Conte. He is a defensive end from Fort Dodge, Iowa. And I remember him specifically telling me, we're talking about Brett Bielema, what makes him special. He made the comment to me that he's originally from Minnesota. That what Brett Bielema was the only Division I coach to recruit him that flew out to West Dodge, Iowa. No one else did that. Everybody else talked to him on the phone. Fort Dodge, Iowa. Everybody else talked to him on the phone. They would send out a bird dog recruiting guy. Brett was there to watch him play. And I remember him telling me how upset he was being from the state of Minnesota, and they couldn't do that. They wouldn't even take the opportunity to do that. So if you want to know why and what you have to do to go recruit kids, it is different. And Josh, we have to give Josh credit because he's hired coaches that get it. They will do all the right things to go recruit kids. You look at the men's basketball staff, the women's coaching staff, they do a really good job. When I have the opportunity to talk to some of these people, Mike, and it always goes back to the coaches. And one of the I know we're talking football. Maddie Weber is a girl from Villanova who transferred to play basketball at Illinois. And because she's watched Shauna Green coach on TV, she saw her on TV, saw how her players played. Even when her players were not playing up to their ability, she fell in love with that. And then have an opportunity to talk to them on the phone as a salesman. All those little things work, Mike, and if it works to your advantage, and it's truthful. You look at the women's program, the girls that could have left, they didn't leave. So it is a good place, and I know some fans out there don't like the fact that Illinois is becoming relevant in multiple sports, but it's going to be that way, especially as long as Josh is there, because he's going to put coaches in the right position to do it. And you look at the men's basketball staff. Tyler Underwood and Zach Hamer. Brad's son is one, but Zach Hamer's a guy that just come on the scene and he's getting it done. So you got to have the right guys in position, I think, number one, but you ought to have a good product to sell. And being in the Big Ten doesn't help. And I will say, like Riley's mom, the basketball player, his mother told me we were talking about her son in the NBA and she brought up the fan base. So kudos to the Illinois fans. You deserve credit. Sometimes you argue with each other. I get it. But I would never, ever say the Illinois fans aren't passionate about their sports, because they are.
Yeah, I think the reason people don't like to travel to Fort Dodge, Iowa. It's only 33 miles from Clear Lake, Iowa, and people think of Buddy Holly and that plane going down there. So that may be why they don't want to do that. And then why would you not want to be relevant in multiple sports? And I think that's a fair question to ask. And in the past, Illinois has really put all their chips in the basketball thing. And now all of a sudden, Josh Whitman played there when Illinois was good at football and basketball. And I think he's basically said, why not Illinois? And I think the excuses for why, Illinois can't win because of this, that, and the other thing, I think when you're trying to sit in front of Josh Whitman and you try to tell him why it's not going to happen, I think very quickly he decides he's got other people he can find who will tell him why. I used to tell sales reps when I was trying to interview them, I would say, look, there's 90, I can go into a room and find 99 people who can tell me why we're not going to hit our sales numbers. I'm looking for that one guy or gal who will tell me how they're going to make it. And I think Josh Whitman is just tired of all the excuses. So he gets people in who are going to find a way to get it done. And Illinois has the strength and the fortitude to get these things done if they want to. And I think for the first time ever, you got somebody who wants it done and doesn't accept things. I that would be my guess. I don't know, Ked. You think I'm going wrong on that?
No, I don't. And Brad, that is a great question. And I would like to comment on that. I would go back to the women's program. The Illinois, let me preface this. Illinois was just a basketball school. It really was. We know that because they've had the most success and they've sustained it. I will tell you, Lisa Bluter, the coach of women's basketball coach at Iowa, I will never forget 3 years ago when she came into Champaign when Illinois beat them. And I remember sitting in that press conference and she told her team after the game, the days of playing at Illinois thinking it's going to be a gimme, they're done. They're not going to happen anymore. You're going to have to work to beat them. So most schools want to be a football school. Most schools want to just invest in basketball or softball or whatever the case may be. Brad, you're right. Why would you not want to invest in it? Because if the more you win in all multiple sports, you don't think those coaches talk to each other. Nazir Rankin, there's a football recruit that's trying to play both sports. So the way that they get along and how they talk to each other, all that stuff's important. But I don't understand why some schools wouldn't want to be that way. But if you can, I don't want to say corner the market, and you can have successful sports in all of them, I think they were one of two or three, of teams in the country that sent teams to the NCAA tournament into a bowl game. Illinois was one of those few schools to do that. To put that in perspective, when you got Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, and Florida, and all these other schools, Illinois was able to do that. So now that they're on the map, and when you turn on the TV or you get on Twitter, you see all these people talking about Illinois football. They have them in their top 25, or the women's basketball recruiting class. And gosh, I hope the coaches don't get mad at me for saying this. The Illinois women's program was trash. It was bad. Not criticizing the coaches. It was a laughing stock. Right now, they're one of the top teams in the Big Ten. They're recruiting at a high level, an elite level, and they're doing it again in 2026. So, yes, you want to be good in all sports. And we need to give Brad Underwood his kudos, too, because I don't want to just sit and take him for granted because he's going to win. He's still getting it done.
And I'll tell you, the bottom line is you have an opportunity, I guess. You have three coaches and now an athletic director who expect people to get things done. You have high standards. I had a guy who told me one time, he goes, human beings try to get over whatever expectations you put in front of them. So if you put an expectation right here, they'll get over the top of it. And his theory is my expectations are always up here because if they get over the top of it, their career will go better and so will mine. And I think that Shauna and Brett and Brad and Josh are all the type of people. We're just going to put the bar up here and everybody's going to be more successful. It'll be more fun for everybody involved and we'll win a lot more. Sometimes these things aren't that hard. I'm going to see if our mystery man, the man in the shadows, the man who we've decided not to show because it could be too dangerous to have his face out there. Brad, you got any comments?
Yeah, I don't know how to get my camera on. But anyway, no, here we are. Goodness gracious. No, I think here's what I'll say. It's nice to be relevant. And I guess.
And Brad's gone.
Oh, there he goes again.
There he goes. Brad is a man of mystery.
He's frustrated. You can tell because he paused for a second. You can tell he's upset.
Brad's an enigma wrapped up in a mystery. So yeah, the disrespect for Luke Altmaier is also a big deal. And I think we got Brad Sturdy back. No, now he's muted.
The disrespect for Luke Altmaier, you know what that comes from? You know what? That's because he's at Illinois. Think about it. If he was at Michigan or Ohio State, that wouldn't happen. It's because, but I tell you, in the offseason, when everybody was trying to poach him, when everybody wanted him to come play for them, it's different. This is going to be a year. That's why I said Malik Elsie is going to be huge, because he has to have somebody who can catch the football. Cole Rusk is a tight end that NFL scouts are drooling over, a kid out of Rock Island. What the heck? Well, the rare face that broke camera. Oh, Brad.
So anyway, yeah, Luke. I think Luke. Maybe it's where he's from, but I think the other part is Brett Bielema is so famous for his rushing attacks. I think it's easy to put him down as a run-only coach, and I think take Luke for granted.
Which they shouldn't, because he can spin it, as they say. I'll tell you, one of the coolest things is when you go to a game before the fans are able to come into the field, when I'm down there early talking to the recruits and he's out there throwing the football, man. It's throwing it on a rope. Illinois got lucky, and to have him around for so long, because he could have left him into the transfer portal. And here's another guy. I don't remember which reporter I asked him why he stayed, and he said Illinois offered him something, meaning from an education and a facility and coaching standpoint, that other schools couldn't do. That says a lot, because, and you're right, that the disrespect is awful. But if he wins games and they get those 10 wins, that disrespect's going to go away, because the quarterback, the receiver, and running back typically gets all the love.
Yep. So, folks, we're going to put a wrap on that here. We're getting close to an hour. And Ked, before we go, we're going to answer one more from Illini. Bubba, who is the next to watch out for in recruitment? Are there any hints you might have on anything or at this time?
If he's talking basketball, I talked to a kid named Colin Rice, who's out of Iowa this week. And I tell you what's unique about him. Now, when I put on our message board, hey, Illinois is recruiting this kid out of Iowa, people were probably thinking, okay, yeah, don't pay attention to it. I had an opportunity to talk to Colin, and here's what's weird. The kid called me and talked to me and told me that how much he loves Illinois. And the thing I like, the fact that he said that Illinois got it going on down there. They're all business. And he loved that. The thought of just him saying, hey, you know what? This program is different. And his interest with the University of Iowa is nothing. I think he visited, but I don't think there's going to be anything more. He also told me today that he got invited to the Top 100 camp, which is in South Carolina. He's visiting there. And when the kid calls me and says, hey, Mr. Prince, I'm going to keep you updated. I'm going to let you know what's going on and how I'm doing. I think that's all great. He's a 6'7", 180-pound wing from Waukee, Iowa, which I said, this really good upside. And from a football standpoint, there's rumors about, I don't want to say, but there's rumors that there should be some more commitments this week. I don't want to ruin it for a kid, but we should expect at least 1 or 2 more commitments this week.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So that'll get people ready to rock and roll. And I do think the opportunity for us, for the Illini to get better on both sports is there. And they've got a pretty impressive roster that they've got ready to rock and roll. I know Brad's having technical difficulties. It was fun, but we don't want to go much longer. We get to the hour mark and people get fatigued. But we appreciate everybody coming on here. We'll try to see if we can get together and do a basketball thing later in the week or early, maybe Sunday night, to talk a little bit updates on basketball as well, because there's things happening there. And obviously getting some ideas of who's in town and how things are looking is also a huge positive as well. So until next time, folks, go Illini.